Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Huffey and today is Saturday, June 20th of 2026. Recently, I said yes to something and at the time I thought, well, that's no big deal. I can say yes to that. But as time went by, I recognize, you know what, that could get me into some legal trouble if I go along with that. And thankfully, the whole situation had not been executed, so there weren't any consequences for me. But sometimes we don't recognize when we should say no, and sometimes we're afraid to say no. I had this problem for so long that I didn't want to say no, and it led me down paths that I shouldn't have gone. But God does work out things for good, even though we mess up. He can bring good out of it. Okay, I'm going to talk to you today out of this book called Boundaries, and the authors are Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. All right, so years and years ago, before I get into this book, I took a class on parenting. It was when my kids were really little, and I was really frustrated with how to discipline, and that class helped me so much. And then I went on to train about that class and to teach it to others. In that class, we talked about saying no, and then other resources that I was reading at the time was talking about the importance of saying no, and it was basically a concept I've never really thought about. And when my kids were little, then if they would say no to me, especially around the age of 2, kids are really exerting their autonomy, and you'll say something or ask them to do something and they'll say no, no. And I didn't want my kids to end up like me, being afraid to say no. So I would say to them, "Oh, you're such a good no sayer." And they would kind of look at me funny because they didn't expect that from mom. And it also diffused their rebelliousness about not doing what I was asking. So it was a really good technique that worked. Now, getting back to this book, it talks about people who have poor boundaries struggle with saying no. They, they don't want to say no to other people's control, to other people's pressure, to other people's demands. And sometimes if somebody will say to you, "Oh, I need something," you feel like you can't say no. But yes, you can. You can say no. The fear is that they feel if they say no to someone, they will endanger their relationship with that person. So they passively comply, but inwardly resent. Now, if you're in this pattern of having a really difficult time saying no, you end up getting mad at yourself, getting mad at the other people because they asked you. It takes a lot to overcome this pattern of being afraid to say no. Sometimes a person is pressuring you to do something. Other times the pressure comes from your own sense of what you should do. I remember that one person in my life should've a lot, and I had to remind myself, "Oh, don't let them should you. Stop shoulding me." I didn't actually say that to them, but in my own mind, it just kind of alerted me to they're basically saying, "I want you to do that." And they're phrasing it as, "You should do that." It's hidden pressure. It's hidden control. Be careful of that one. If you cannot say no to this external or internal pressure, you have lost control of your property or of yourself. because they talk about the concept of the property is your body. And you are not enjoying the fruit of self-control. And that's in the Bible. That's the fruit, one of the fruit of the spirits. This is such a great thing to finally get into the place where you're feeling okay with saying no. And I have found that when I say no, that doesn't work for me, people can't really argue with it. They don't know how to argue against that statement. If you give an excuse of no, that doesn't work for me this, or no, I can't do it this afternoon, they'll say, well, what about tomorrow morning? What about, you don't want to give them an opening where they can manipulate and pressure you into doing the thing they want you to do at another time. Just say plainly, no, that doesn't work for me. Doesn't matter what time of day, what time of the week, what state you're in, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work for me. It never works for me is what you're saying. That's what you're implying. So that's a really great phrase. Practice it. Just practice the scenario in your mind. Someone asking you something, you say, oh, you know what? No, that doesn't work for me. Get it to be a normal way that you speak. It'll be scary when you first start using it, but you can do it. Yes. Bring back the power to yourself, the power of self-control, controlling yourself. You know, what do you want to be in charge of? Don't let everybody else be in charge of you. All right. I think that's everything for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.